Hi, I'm Corbie Mitleid, and welcome to Cafe Corbie. Before we get started, be sure to click the subscribe button so you never miss news from the nest. Today, we're returning to Corbie's Wayback Machine to talk about past lives, especially when we dream about them. Very often, people get dreams that are so vivid they know they're getting information on a past life. Dreams can be doorways, revealing important information from the past in order to bring lessons into the life we live now. Here, I'm going to work with three people who have been given glimpses of something they know is important, but who need more detail to get things to make sense. Sam said, "I've had this vision for a very long time. I'm a very old man living alone in the desert. I'm content walking to a humble shack that's my home. I calmly realize that I'm dying, and I just want to get indoors before I die. Mainly, I just don't want to upset whoever finds my body, which I believe would happen if the animals get to me after I'm gone. As the door closes, I fall to the ground. Is this a past life?" Sam was right on target. I zeroed in on this life right away. This is during the Dust Bowl era in the 1930s, when there was a catastrophic multi-year drought in the United States. Sam was First Nations, Apache perhaps, who gave everything he had to get his people across the wastelands. My sense was that he passed on his last food, his last water, his last clothing and fuel, knowing that the family he gave it to with young children were the future, and as an elder it was his duty to give them life and hope. He didn't want another family with children to find the body. Now Sam sent me a fascinating reply. "That was really cool," he said. "After I talked to you, I looked up 1930s Dust Bowl shack. I couldn't find anything that looked like the shack in my memory. It was more of a hobbit hole in appearance than a tool shed. Then I found some that looked more like it. They were called soddies. So I updated my search to 1930s Dust Bowl soddies and found a picture. The house in my memory looked just like this, with a door on the same side and everything." Adelaide wrote to me and said, "For the past 30 years, I keep dreaming of being inside an old home. It's painted white, with a lot of doors that I keep being shown to go in. This house makes me feel elated. It's a warm, fuzzy feeling. Often there seems to be a second story on this house with more empty rooms that I don't know are there. I once was able to open a door leading to a very sterile white old kitchen. Otherwise, the rooms seem to always be empty. Actually, I don't know if it has anything to do with my 2-year obsession with buying a home in Sharon Springs, New York. I'm a city girl. I've lived in New York City when I was young and then 25 years in Miami and now back in New York City. To me, Sharon Springs, though I've not ever been there, reminds me of that home. It's the age and tranquility in the pictures I see of the village that makes me feel like crying." Adelaide wasn't seeing Sharon Springs, New York, but southeastern Georgia in the first quarter of the 20th century. She married well to a northerner. Her family had connections on both sides of the Mason-Dixon line before the Civil War. She came back south to salvage the family home that had belonged to her relations. Not a plantation, but a well-to-do house that fell into disrepair because the family had fled. Purchasing it for pennies on the dollar, she lavished time and love and money on the repair and renovation, and her dream recalls the first time her family returned to it since it was finished. It would make sense that the rooms were empty and the kitchen sterile if no one has yet moved in. While I didn't see a return to the South in Adelaide's future, Sharon Springs, New York has a lot of houses that are 19th century in vintage and would welcome a loving and happy touch, bringing them back to their former splendor. So who knows? It could be Sharon Springs in Adelaide's future. Finally, Ron asked me, "Whenever I go to a museum and look at furniture from the 1700s, I want to touch it and turn it over to look at how it was made. My hands get almost itchy. I want it so bad. And usually then I get at least one night of a recurring dream where I'm in a big barn and sawing wood, but my hands are old and gnarled, and when I drop my hammer, I see shoes on my feet like a pilgrim's. It's very cold and I can see my breath. Can you explain this?" When I tuned in, I saw Ron in a house in 18th century rural Maine, somewhat better than rough-hewn, but certainly not the elegant places that would have been found in a city like Boston. Around him were several pieces of broken furniture that he was repairing. He had a huge respect for the art of wood carving, as well as the typical New England frugality. He did anything, legal and moral, to bring food into the house and clothe his wife and children, farming, woodworking, or well digging. When he was able to get a piece of furniture that a more well-to-do family would have gotten rid of, he took it home, took it apart the way a modern person would tinker with a car, and did his best to both match its style and build it better. His feeling was, if my great-grandchildren can't receive it from me with another good life or two in it, I haven't done my work right. The shoes he saw are typical shoes of the period, low-heeled leather shoes with buckles. The well-to-do had boots for riding, but he was a tradesman and farmer and had one pair of shoes at a time. I encouraged Ron to try his hand at woodworking today. If he still feels the call of oak and maple, then he might just surprise himself with how quickly these old skills return to a new set of hands. That's it for today from Cafe Corbie. Special thanks to our Patreon team, whose support enables us to bring you all these videos. Amy Bush, Shannon Hayes, Robin McAleer, Frankie Wood, and Bernie Jung. Be sure to visit us on Facebook at Fire Through Spirit, or join us on Patreon for exclusive content and to be part of the flock. We'll see you again soon.